Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Michelle Stern. Welcome back, subscribers and viewers. Welcome to all new subscribers and viewers. Please, everyone, remember to give the video a thumbs up and share. So, what is this video about today? Well, this video is intended to take a deeper look at that second affidavit of Craig Beresford, the late Director of Information and Complaints at the Integrity Commission. When you hear what it is I'm about to tell you, you are going to be shocked out of your mind. And it's going to shatter whatever you think you know about whatever it is that you think you know about the matter surrounding the investigation and the non-certification of Andrew Holness's statutory declarations. When we went through that second affidavit that was filed by Craig Beresford in the Supreme Court, May 14 of 2025, we were very, very surprised indeed to see what he was admitting to. A huge contradiction of what it was that Seymour Panton had told us when he had sent that letter accompanying the investigation into the Prime Minister's affairs to the Parliament. He totally contradicted it. And you're going to be amazed at what we found out. You're going to be amazed. It is a shocker. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you're standing up while you're listening, please sit down. And if you're seated, hold on tight to your chair, because you will not believe what it is I'm about to tell you. Now, I know some persons may be wondering what is an affidavit and how serious it is. An affidavit is a written statement made under oath where the person making the statement, the person is called affiant, swears to the truth of the contents of that statement. It's a legal document used as evidence in various legal, financial, and administrative matters, including court proceedings. And this one was filed in the Supreme Court, and so this one has to do with legal matters. So when you file a case before the court, there are some instances where you are required to have a sworn statement attached to your claim. You're simply telling the court what happened. And then there is a clause where you're actually saying that what it is that you're saying in this affidavit is true to the best of your knowledge and belief. You then sign the affidavit before a justice of the peace, who then affixes their signature and seal the document. Once that is done, the affidavit is now legal and ready to be filed in the court, along with your claim form, as well as any evidence that you have to support the statements you made in the affidavit. So that is what an affidavit is. Now, a person who knowingly and willfully makes a false statement in an affidavit with the intention to mislead the court, particularly if it is of a serious matter that could sway the court's decision if the court were to rely on it, that person could be charged with perjury. And under the Perjury Act, somebody who is found guilty could face up to 7 years imprisonment with hard labor, or pay a fine, or go to prison and pay a fine. It is a very serious matter. So in this case, if Craig Beresford made false statements in his affidavit, he could get himself in very serious trouble. And this is something that we need to bear in mind as we go through this affidavit. Now, you will recall that back in September of 2024, when the Integrity Commission had sent to the Parliament the investigation into Andrew Holness's affairs, but there was an accompanying letter from Seymour Panton, Justice Seymour Panton, which was also tabled. And it had to do with the certification of Andrew Holness's declaration, now that the case was closed by the decision of the prosecutor. And this was what Seymour Panton said. That appears to me to have been contradicted by what Beresford said in his affidavit. And remember, Beresford is under an obligation to ensure that whatever it is that he says in this affidavit is the truth, or he could end up in big trouble. So let us now read what it was that Panton had said in that letter about Holness's certification and the reason why it will not be certified. And it reads, Special Report submitted by the Integrity Commission under Section 36(3) of the Integrity Commission Act in the matter of an investigation report of an investigation conducted into the statutory declaration submitted by the Most Honorable Mr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, for the years 2019 to 2022 in respect of concerns that he owns assets disproportionate to his lawful earnings and that he made false statements in his statutory declarations by way of omissions contrary to law. So it says in the body, the Integrity Commission has taken note of the recommendation of its Director of Investigation made in paragraph 6.2.3 of the captioned investigation report that a copy of it be referred to the Financial Investigation Division, FID, a law enforcement agency of the government of Jamaica. You remember that? Yes, Stevenson had made a recommendation in the investigation report that was tabled in Parliament, and this is what Seymour Panton's letter was about. Seymour Panton went on to say, the reference report of investigation was formally submitted to the Parliament today, September 5, 2024. The Integrity Commission is hereby urging the Parliament to support this referral of its Director of Investigation, as there can be no finality in the matter until the FID has completed its work. What finality was Justice Seymour Panton referring to? Let's read on and see. Justice Panton went on to say, the Commission reminds Parliament that in keeping with the provisions of the Integrity Commission Act, there can be no certification of a statutory declaration until the Commission's Director of Information and Complaints, that's Craig Beresford, is satisfied that the statutory declaration has been duly completed. Once he is so satisfied, he will inform the Commission, meaning that he will recommend to the Commission that they should go ahead and certify the declaration. So what is he saying here? He's saying that in the report that was tabled in the Parliament, the investigation report into the allegations of false statements and illicit enrichment by the Prime Minister, the Director of Investigation had recommended that the FID should investigate the matter further. Panton is saying, seems to me, that the Prime Minister's statutory declarations will not be certified until and unless they receive the investigation report into the matter from the FID. In my view, that is the impression that Seymour Panton's letter gave. Now at this point, I'm going to ask anybody who is listening to this video and you happen to move in high circles and rub shoulders with the Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis, can you do me a favor, please, and pass this video to her? Yes, please do. And I thank you, of course, in advance. Now, the question is, what was it that Beresford said in his sworn affidavit? Now, folks, here now is the bombshell. This is the bombshell which was revealed in Craig Beresford's second affidavit, which was filed in the court May 14 of 2025. Let me read for you what paragraph 30 of his affidavit said. I refer to paragraph 12H of the second Holness affidavit. So Holness had submitted an affidavit, a second affidavit, making some assertions, and he's responding to that. in his second affidavit, right? So let me read that again. Beresford said, I refer to paragraph 12H of the second Holness affidavit. There is no attempt to stir up the public sentiment against Mr. Holness or embarrass him in any way. My only interest is to faithfully discharge the mandate of the Integrity Commission. Listen good now, this is a bombshell. The matter of the source of funds concerning the claimant companies with respect to Mr. Holness's statutory declaration for 2021 remains outstanding. Once the source of funds is confirmed for Mr. Holness's 2021 statutory declaration, then the examination of his 2021 to 2023 statutory declarations will be concluded. Do you understand what Craig Beresford said here, ladies and gentlemen? He's saying that what is holding up the thing now is the source of funds of the three companies that Holness has. He's saying that that is outstanding for 2021. And that'll hold it up. Once he received that, once it is confirmed, right, for his 2021 statutory declaration, what the source of fund for the companies were, then the examination of his 2021, 2022, and 2023 statutory declarations will be concluded, meaning to say he will then be satisfied that they are complete and recommend them to be certified. Did he say anything here about waiting on any report from the FID? No. He did not say anything about the FID report. So all of that hullabaloo and protest and demonstration that was going on about Holness putting Chung there in order to influence the outcome of the investigation in his statutory declaration, what was that about? Because Beresford is telling you here that I'm not waiting on any FID report. What I'm waiting on is the source of funding for the three companies for the 2021 statutory declaration, and everything good. In other words, it's a 2021 source of funds that is holding the thing up. That's what he's saying here. Isn't this a bombshell of a revelation? Whoever it was that caused this affidavit to be circulated in the first place, I don't know what they thought they were doing. If they thought they were, causing problems, what they have done is cleared up the matter for us. And I'm sure I, for one, am very grateful. And I know you will be too, because outside of this affidavit being leaked, we'd have to go wait on the court proceedings to hear what are going on. But thanks to them, they put it out right when the election is being called, and now we know and have an understanding of what went on. So when Seymour Panton said, intimating to that letter he wrote to Parliament, that unless the FID completes its work, its investigation into the statutory declarations, quoting him now, there can be no certification of a statutory declaration until the Commission's Director of Information and Complaints is satisfied that the statutory declaration has been duly completed. It's one of two possibilities here. Either not go so, or something did go so, but because Holness went and filed a lawsuit and they realized the precarious position that they were in, or in any event, Beresford may have, he then changed his mind, made an about turn, and then said no. Oh, me not wait for no FID report. Where wanna get that from? It's the source of funds concerning the companies for 2021 I'm waiting on. The question is, who is speaking the truth? And for that, we're going to return to something else that Beresford said in this affidavit. At paragraph 7, he said, the Information and Complaints Committee is established pursuant to Section 25 of the Act, which is the Integrity Commission Act, and I report to them, subject to Section 33 of the Act, Once all the relevant information is received, a financial analysis is undertaken and a meeting is convened with the Information and Complaints Committee to consider the information and the results of the financial analysis and to decide whether to make a recommendation for certification or to submit a report of the findings to the Commission. So, what he's saying here is that there is established an Information and Complaints Committee, and it is to that committee that he reports. So, whenever he does any analysis of any statutory declaration or has any findings about anything at all, he has to report to that committee. He then went on to tell us the sequence of events, that once he receives a statutory declaration and all the information is complete, he then does a financial analysis of what is contained. Then a meeting is convened with the Information and Complaints Committee, and it is there that they consider the information and the results of the financial analysis. And then after that, they decide whether they're going to recommend certification or they're going to recommend referral for further investigation. That's basically what he's saying here. So he reports to an Information and Complaints Committee. Now, let's go now to the annual report of the Integrity Commission to see who were the members of the Information and Complaints Committee in 2021-2022. That's when they started to investigate homeless statutory declarations. And this is an extract from the 2021-2022 report. Indeed, all the way up to 2024-2025, Pamela Monroe Ellis has been chairing the Information and Complaints Committee. It says, pursuant to Section 25 of the Integrity Commission Act 2017, a committee of this division was established. The committee is comprised of 3 members of the commission. That means that it's always 3 of the 5 commissioners that sits on these committees. Pamela Monroe Ellis, Chair, Justice Retired Seymour Panton, and Eric Crawford are the 3 commissioners who sits on this commission, as well as the Director of Information and Complaints himself, Craig Beresford. So these are the 3 commissioners that make up the Information and Complaints Committee that he reports to. And the chairman of that committee is Pamela Monroe Ellis, the Auditor General. So what we have discovered in this affidavit is that Craig Beresford is not acting alone. He's not making these decisions on his own. Indeed, it appears as though it's the committee that makes a decision after he presents them with his findings, whether it's a financial analysis or something else. Now, why is it that I said it was important? It is important because we need to know who was telling us the truth. Was it Justice Panton when he said that there can be no finality in the matter until the FID has completed its work, and seemed to have intimated that Craig Beresford would not recommend the declarations for certification until he receives the investigation report from the FID? Is that the truth? Or was what Beresford said in the affidavit the truth? That he's not waiting on any FID, he's waiting instead on a confirmation, according to him, of the source of funds for the companies in that 2021 declaration. Which one is true? They can both be true. And this seems to me to be very, very critical. And I suggest, Mas Andrew, if you have not yet done so, yes, please send this to Mas Andrew. Thank you very much. Mas Andrew, if you have not yet done so, or your attorneys have not yet made that request, we need to know who is speaking the truth. And where you're going to find that out is in that committee. The Information and Complaints Committee they would have met and discussed your statutory declaration, and they would have had minutes. So you need to get your hands on the minutes of those meetings where they discussed your statutory declaration to see what was said in that meeting. Did they in fact say that they were not going to certify unless the FID did its investigation, right? In which event they would have been holding up your statutory declaration, very possibly unlawfully. That's the first thing. If indeed that was what was discussed, then it means that Craig Beresford was lying in his affidavit, and that now would discredit everything else he says in it. I should think that it is also important to find out if when they were making the decision about the referral, whether or not they had sought to have legal advice. Yes, a judge was sitting on the committee, but certainly the judge is not there to advise himself. And a lawyer will always tell you that even when they have a matter before the court, they seek legal representation for themselves. They don't represent themselves. So that is the second thing your attorneys would want to know, whether or not they had sought legal advice. Who was it that made the suggestion that, yes, we should refer the matter to the FID, and what it was that they anticipated that would come of it? So you need to get your hands on the minutes of that committee. Now, having made this very vital and important piece of discovery from the affidavit of Craig Beresford, we now turn and look at what he had actually said. He said in paragraph 30 of the affidavit that the matter of the source of funds concerning the claimant companies, that is Andrew Holness's companies, with respect to Holness's statutory declaration for 2021 remains outstanding. Now the question is that true? And for that, we now turn to the investigation report itself. And the question we're going to ask is whether or not Kevon Stevenson had asked Andrew Holness for the source of funding for the three companies. That is the first thing we need to establish. Now I'm going to beg you all to pay very close attention to what it is I'm about to say from now on. There were three companies that Holness had ownership of. But the key company in all of this investigation was Imperium Holdings Limited. It was a holding company, as many business people and other persons with several assets, they tend to use these holding companies, I do believe, to keep track of these assets and to enable them to manage them as well. It is also easier to transfer assets as well as cut down on the taxes that they pay on the transfer of these assets. And in the case of Andrew Holness, Imperium Holdings Limited was such a company. Now, Imperium was established in Jamaica in 2020 to be the new vehicle of Holness's to hold his assets. The previous company was called ADMAT Incorporated, and it was a company that was registered in St. Lucia. Stay with me, please. Now, you at the commission, you have already assessed and investigated the source of funds for every piece of asset that ADMAT held. And you certified all of Andrew Holness's statutory declarations from 1998 until 2018. Please remember that when your commission was established, and Pamela, you were there from the beginning, when the new Integrity Commission was established, you had an acting Director of Information and Complaints, and you also had an acting Director of Investigation. And they had conducted an investigation into Holness's finances from when Andrew Holness became a parliamentarian in 1998 up to 2016. It was during the course of that investigation that it was revealed by Holness himself that his source of income for buying his vacant lot, that land at Shenstone in Beverly Hills, the Waycliffe Close, and other assets that he had purchased came from investments that he had made in a taxi company. Taxis he had sold them and realized 8 million plus, recovering some money from a little loan business that he had. He invested a portion of that in Cash Plus and Olint, and they were offering 10% return on the investment every month. So they were paying 10% every month. And so if you leave your money in there, every 10 months, your money would double. He was withdrawing the money at regular intervals to buy land and to buy apartments and so on. So that was what the investigators found out was the source of the income, why he had between 2006 and 9, there was a significant jump in his earnings. Now, in 2008, Holness had established a company called AdMat Incorporated, which was registered in the St. Lucia, and that was a vehicle for holding his assets. So when he bought the land, he would buy the land in the name of AdMat and buy stocks and bonds and shares in the name of AdMat, not in his own name. And there are a variety of reasons, and I'll explain that later. So it was the assets of AdMat that the Integrity Commission wanted to know the source of income for. And having realized what the source of income was, based on what it was that Holness told them, and their own investigation, and having had it confirmed, they then certified, because he had to make adjustments to the declarations going all the way back to when he started in Parliament. So he would have resubmitted those 1998 to 2016 statutory declarations, and it would have been certified. So there is no doubt at all, that every piece of asset that was owned by AdMat Incorporated was found to come from legitimate source. And so when Holness decided to wind up the AdMat company and open a new one here called Imperium and transfer all the assets from AdMat to Imperium, except Waycliffe Close, which was transferred to a newly formed company called Estate Bridge. But when he transferred all of those other assets to Imperium, he would have been transferring assets that has already been established to have a legitimate source of funding. Follow me? Yes. So the only thing that would concern the Integrity Commission would be any new assets that were purchased by Imperium. And indeed, there were some assets, some bonds, and so on. And in the investigation report, they had asked Holness for the source of funding for each one of these stocks and bonds that had been purchased by Imperium. The Integrity Commission had also asked for the source of funding in each of the accounts that was in the name of Imperium as well. So they did a comprehensive investigation into Imperium, and every single asset that was purchased, and they asked for the source of funding, it was provided. And every single account that was held by Imperium, was the source of income was also established. So that when we return now to the affidavit of Craig Beresford, and he stated at paragraph 30 that the matter of the source of funds concerning claimant companies with respect to Mr. Holness's statutory declaration for 2021 remains outstanding. When it comes to the company Imperium, that is not true. The source of funding for that company was established. And as a consequence of it being established, go back to the report, Pamela, and you will see he never asked for the source of funding for Imperium itself. Just put in source of funding, source of fund in the search area and keep clicking through, and you will see that he never asked about Imperium because he already knew what the source of funding for Imperium was. It was coming from ADMAT, and that was already established. And then he asked about the new assets, the new bonds, and the bank accounts and these investment accounts, the source of funding, and they were established. They were established by Holness and confirmed by his examination of the bank statements, as well as questions that were asked of the banks and investment companies. And we're talking about National Commercial Bank, NCB Capital Market, Barita. These are the entities in which he had accounts, investments accounts, and bank accounts. These are the facts which were established by your own Director of Investigation in that report that it was tabled in Parliament. So, Pamela and the current members of the Information and Complaints Committee, I have shown you the evidence in your own investigator's report that the source of funding for Imperium has already been provided and confirmed by the Director of Investigation. And so we are to take now Imperium out of that list of claims that its source of funding remains outstanding. It's now out. We're now going to look at the other two and check their status with regards to their source of funding, whether it was provided or whether it remains outstanding, according to Craig Beresford. So, Pamela, what I am going to demonstrate to you now is that the source of funding has already been established and it is in this report. There are 3 companies, and all we need to do is to establish the source of the funds. That's what Craig Beresford said, and that is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to ask you and the other commissioners to please turn to the investigation report to 5.8.95. And a question was asked by the investigator. It says, Mr. Holness, in his written explanation dated September 29, 2023, made the following representations in respect of the source of funding for the investments made in Estate Bridge and Positive Media. What was the question that was asked? Question 75. Reference is made to the financial statement submitted by you for Imperium Holdings Limited for 2021. What is the source of funding for $23 million classified as contribution to real estate development and $2.9 million invested in Positive Media Solution Limited? The first thing that we have established here is that the question was asked. The question was asked by the investigator and an answer was given. It is in the answer that was given that we will determine whether or not the source of funding was established, especially in circumstances where the investigator said that he had confirmed the information to be true. Holness's response was 1. Contribution to real estate development is comprised of transfer of $10.6 million in stocks to Estate Bridge and net consolidated balance on related company account of $12.6 million. What is the net consolidated balance on related company? Any one of the companies that have a balance cash in them accounts that is not going to be used, it is transferred to Imperium, and Imperium will then put it to use. Either it's going to invest it into something, and then when it's done and they need the money, they send it back. Right? That is my understanding of what he said he was doing. Now, the second part of the question, the investigator wanted to know what was the source of funding for the $2.9 million that was invested in Positive Media. Holness's response was, over the years, I have acquired communications and media equipment which is used to support my communication efforts and interests. He then went on to list the equipment that he had pre-owned. And we are talking about equipment like teleprompters, 4K cameras, accessories, drones, lighting, public address systems, streaming equipment, and so on. He then said, I decided to consolidate equipment and operations into a structured business. The value of the equipment is estimated at approximately $2.5 million and is captured in the management account presented for Positive Media Solutions. $400,000 was also contributed to the working capital of the business. Together, this accounts for Imperium's investment in Positive Media Solutions Limited. What is it that Beresford meant by when he said that he is waiting for the source of income? Isn't this a source of income for Positive Media? $2.5 million for the equipment. That's the estimated value for the equipment. And then he contributed $400,000 for the working capital. Add them together and you get the $2.9 million. That was a source of funds for Positive Media. The next thing that you wanted to know was the source of the income of Positive Media Solutions. And it says, the question 71, what is the source of Positive Media Solutions limited income and or funding? And he gave a variety of answers. The answer, it says media management, communication primarily through media monitoring and response through blogging and posting on social media platforms, multimedia content, ideation and creation primarily through video production, music, graphics, and photography. It appears as though Andrew Holness thought you were asking about the company and what it does. But evidently that was not what the investigator wanted to know. So he sent the question out again. And the answer this time around came up with the client's list. The list of clients for Positive Media. You're talking about Positive Jamaica Foundation, which is a charity, West Central St. Andrew Trust, Jamaica Labour Party, and Green Emerald Trading. Andrew Holness apparently found this particular question intrusive, and so he merely gave the names of the clients without more. And so you at the commission went and found other ways to get that information that you wanted. You went to the bank statements of Positive Media and extracted information from it. And what you discovered, and this is what the investigator said, Pamela. What is the source of the income now of Positive Media? 5.8.135 said, the evidence shows. Are you listening to me, Pamela? The evidence shows that a total of $22.9 million was deposited to Positive Media's NCB account, bearing account number 52 from Green Emerald Trading Limited. Mr. Murray disclosed that $2.287 million was for marketing and promotion services, and $20.2 million represented the total loans between the period March 2021 and May 2022. So what is this we are looking at here? It is a part of the source of the income, the source of the funding of Positive Media. There was a loan of $20.2 million from Green Emerald Trading Limited. And there was income that they earned from doing business, $2.2 million for marketing and promotion services. So money was loaned to Positive Media, and it was repaid, though not by Positive Media but by Imperium, which means that Positive Media owed Premium $20.6 million. And here again at 5.8.125, it says the management account statement of comprehensive income for Positive Media provided by Mr. Holness and the company secretary, Mr. Donovan Williams, indicates that Positive Media earned $20 million from projects, events, and media management for the year ending December 31, 2021. This is also at odds with the filing of a nil tax return for 2021, but we are not interested in that. What we are interested in is a source of fund. So, what have we gotten so far? We have, for Positive Media, a capital injection of $4 million from the shareholders. We have a loan of $20.6 million from Green Emerald. We have earnings from projects of $20 million. And we also have a working capital of $400,000 that was deposited in their account. These are cash we're talking about now. So when you add up this cash amount, what you get is that Positive Media had in their bank account at some point during the year 2021, $41 million. So by your own investigator, he used the words, the evidence showed the source of funding for Positive Media has been established and confirmed through the bank statements, as well as a source of income has been established and confirmed by your investigator. So when Mr. Beresford said in his affidavit filed in the Supreme Court that the reason for not having certified Andrew Holness's statutory declaration was because the source of funds concerning his companies remains outstanding, we have established already that when it comes to Imperium, that was not true. We have now established that when it comes to the company Positive Media, that is also not true. Let us check to see, though, because there's a third company, perhaps that is the company that has its source of funds outstanding. So let's check that before we make any further comments. So Pamela, what we have done is to show you that 2 out of 3 of the companies had their source of funding not only investigated, but confirmed by your very own investigator. Estate Bridge was established in 2020 July, and it was established to develop the Wycliffe Close property into a townhouse complex. It seems to me to have been a family project between Holness's sister. He brought in a friend, Norman Brown, and they were supposed to develop 4 units, one of them to be sold to recover some of the costs of expenditure. Now, the shareholders contributed a significant amount of the source of funding for Estate Bridge. The holding company, Imperium, invested $23.2 million. Holness's sister, she invested $19.8 million. And Norman Brown, he invested $61.8 million. And we already established that for Imperium, some of what they contributed was in fact stocks. Now you might say, hey, but what can they do with stocks? They can borrow against it. That is probably the reason why that was contributed and not cash. And it would also allow Holness to be free to use whatever cash that Imperium has to buy other stocks and bonds and so on. So we have had the investigator confirm the source of funding from Imperium. Now, when it comes to Estate Bridge, they have a capital contribution from the three shareholders of $94.4 million. In addition to that, Estate Bridge had borrowed $25 million from NCB Capital Market on December 23, 2021. And then the money that they had loaned out to Imperium, they received interest on it from Imperium of $1 million. When you add that up, you get a total of $110.4 million, and that would be cash. And there concludes my own evidence to you. What have I just done, members of the commission? I have outlined for you something that you should have seen for yourselves, but you didn't. The source of funding for the three companies were there all along. How the hell could you not have seen it? How? Now that you've recognized that you've made a dreadful mistake, what are you going to do about it? It has been nearly 1 year since his statutory declarations should have been certified by you. But you failed to do so because of this mistake. Far be it from me to be telling you what your duties are, but I'm going to do so nonetheless. But let us first establish and acknowledge that you have made a dreadful mistake at the Integrity Commission. That the source of funding of Holness's three companies were interrogated extensively by Kevon Stevenson, and every penny was found by him to have come from legitimate, verifiable, lawful earnings borne out by and supported by evidence that you cannot refute, irrefutable evidence, good evidence that can go before the court and succeed. These pieces of evidence were all backed up by over 50 witness statements garnered by the Director of Investigation. That is the position that the Integrity Commission is in. You are not going to be able to win at the court. Look at what it is that I've shown you, and you will see for yourself that you can't win. What then are you going to do? Your duty under the law is what you are going to do. I am speaking to all of you, particularly those of you who sit on that Information and Complaints Committee. You have a duty under the law, and that is the duty that you are going to carry out. Your duty under the law is to examine the statutory declarations submitted to you, check for accuracy, ensure all documents supporting the line item claim made, and once done and you are satisfied that the declaration is complete, it is your duty under the law to recommend to the full commission that that statutory declaration should be certified. Craig Beresford, the former Director of Information and Complaints, in his affidavit stated what you all agreed on. And that agreement was, once you can establish the source of funding for the three companies of Andrew Holness, you would have gone ahead and recommended to the full commission that his 2021, 2022, and 2023 statutory declarations be certified. That was what you all agreed on. It is no part of your duty under the law to play politics, to exercise political bias, assuming that you have one. There is no part and parcel of that in the law. And I'm sure I shouldn't have to tell any of you that. to get up into your feelings. Get up into your feelings because you don't like somebody because of who they are or for what they may have done. You are expected, all of you, to act and be professional at all times. And to act and be professional at all times mean that you must be fair to all who come before you at all times. And when you make mistakes, when you realize that you have made a mistake, do your duty to the law you were sworn to uphold. Do your duty to your own reputation. Do the right thing by the institution that you have a duty to protect. The reputation of that institution you have a duty to protect. Do the right thing by your own family and do your duty to your country. Correct your mistake quick and fast, without delay. Act as if there is no tomorrow. But whatever you do, correct your mistake. Do not compound the problem and compound your mistakes by making another mistake and wait until after the election, then you go and certify. That would be a mistake because this is a video, as you can imagine, and it will be published, and it is after it is published that you will be getting it. It means that it's not you alone will know that you've made a mistake. There are thousands of people will know. I am sure the hundreds of labor right bloggers are going to take this video and carry it all about the place. And so you're not going to have much time. The only way to fix this is to do what it was that you have all agreed to do, and do it without being prompted or being pressured, because the pressure is going to start. That is all I'm asking of you. And hopefully you're going to get this today, Sunday. If not, you'll get it tomorrow for sure. I am going to be sending this to Nasetta, if that is her name, and hopefully she get it to you quick and fast before the whole country start to raise backside about it all. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I bid you good day. I want to thank you for hearing me out, and I sincerely hope that you take my unsolicited advice and do the right thing. Best wishes to you all.